Continuing on from question 7 of logical reasoning drill set number 11 over at lawhub.lsac.org. As always, we've got a highlight tool ready to go, and we read the question stem for number 8 first. It states, which one of the following, if true, most strengthens the farmer's argument? So we've got one of the most straightforward question tasks we can have. We just need to strengthen this argument. So we're going to read the farmer's statements in full without doing any highlighting, highlight only the conclusion. And if we've got a relatively easy to understand in real life situation, we might try to predict broadly what kind of information would be necessary to strengthen that argument before going to the answer choices and cross-checking against that prediction as opposed to the whole paragraph. The farmer states, according to United Nations estimates, almost 250 million hectares of new cropland will be needed over the next 30 years to feed the world's growing population. Yet in the countries where population growth is most rapid, there are only about 50 million hectares of undeveloped land that could be turned to conventional agricultural use. There are, however, new agricultural techniques that make it possible to grow crops on a great deal of land unsuitable for conventional agriculture. So farmers clearly need to begin using these techniques if the increasing population is to be fed, and that recommendation should jump out as the conclusion at the end. And it's predicated solely on this idea that we're basically running out of undeveloped land that could be turned into conventional agricultural use in countries where population growth is most rapid. So instead, we need to grow crops on land that is not suitable for conventional agriculture. Well, that needs to be in these countries where population growth is most rapid for any of this evidence to be relevant to that conclusion. So we need to find an answer choice that says we've got a bunch of land unsuitable for conventional agriculture in these countries where population growth is most rapid. So we have that in mind as we go to our answer choices, starting with A, with the highlight tool selected and ready to go to mark reasons to eliminate or select as we go through these options. A states, the undeveloped land that could be used for conventional agriculture in the countries whose population are growing most rapidly makes up the great majority of such land available worldwide. Well, this is exactly it, saying that there isn't any conventional land elsewhere outside of this population growth place where apparently we need the more unconventional techniques for the land that is unsuitable for conventional architecture, or not architecture, agriculture, and you can see how choice A hopefully fills that gap. A little bit of the flip side of the coin, but it's absolutely about those the land in the countries whose populations are growing most rapidly, which was the issue we predicted at the outset. Now, if you've got choice A as your selected option, you can hopefully go much more briskly through the remaining answer choices. We'll, of course, find specific reasons for each of them, starting with choice B. In the countries whose populations are growing most rapidly, much of the land that is unsuitable for conventional agriculture is developed. Well, if that's true, then we don't need these unsuitable for conventional agriculture farming techniques. So B is actually a reversal. Goodbye to it for weakening the farmer's argument. Then choice C, if farmers begin growing crops on all of the land unsuitable for conventional agriculture, enough food could be produced to feed the world's population over the next 30 years. All of the land. We don't need all of the land. We need that land that was specifically in the countries where population growth is most rapid. So goodbye to choice C, because and again, there are some instances where it's extreme. This would be one of them. Also, we don't care about the hypothetical of what would happen if all of the land that was unsuitable for conventional agriculture, they had crops growing on it. Again, it's not a hypothetical that's actually relevant to the farmer's recommendation at all. A couple of reasons to eliminate C, and you probably spend less time considering it when you're working through the problem proactively. Then choice D, the new agricultural techniques that make it possible to grow crops on land that is unsuitable for conventional agriculture also make it possible for crops to be grown on almost any land that is suitable for conventional agriculture. Again, well, if that's true, we don't need to follow the farmer's recommendation anymore, so goodbye to choice D, because we'd be able to go do the growing on the land that is suitable. It's just not necessary to do it on the unsuitable agriculture land. Then choice E, over the next 30 years, the countries whose populations are growing most rapidly are likely to discover new techniques for feeding their growing populations. Okay, are they farming techniques? I don't know, this needs a ton of additional information. And again, you can see, especially as you're aiming for that top tier of a 160 plus, 165 plus, 170 plus, having that prediction of I only care about the countries where population growth is most rapid can help you get through what is a relatively lengthy paragraph more efficiently, because really A is exactly what is necessary to believe the argument, basically, and thereby strengthens the relationship described by the farmer. And each of B, C, D, and E introduce concepts that are outside of that recommendation, or in fact weaken the recommendation, as we saw through our process of elimination for question number 8 here over at drill set number 11.